Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast.
On the Hockey IQ podcast today, we bring on Matt Howatt. He's a strength and conditioning guy who goes well beyond the ice, really looking holistically. I'm excited. Good Calgary, Alberta native, so home of Johnny Gaudreau and, not McDavid and all those wimps up north. So go Flames, go.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Greg. Really appreciate it.
So I think we need to jump straight into it. Why is the bench press a hockey player's best friend?
I don't know if it's their best friend, but getting stronger is always going to help you on the ice. I think you're talking about that comment that I left on one of your posts. You just posted a clip of like someone getting knocked out of the way in front of the net and say, I think you're like, this is why everyone needs to bench, like kind of sarcastically, but some people on.
Yeah. Basically everyone jumped up.
Yeah. There's a lot
of
comments on that saying we never bench with our players that we train, or some people were on the other side as well. But it was funny. There was one that said they never bench. And then I think I replied with an article to showing that like bench press strength leads to a harder shot. Just one study. So yeah, maybe not everyone needs to bench, but getting stronger is the key there, whether it's through bodyweight stuff or dumbbells or a barbell. I don't really care. But if you're a hockey player working on your strength, you're probably going to be better on the ice for it.
So how do we go about doing that effectively? Because obviously it sounds really easy. Just pick up heavy things and put it right back down. But I'm assuming there's probably a little bit more to it. So walk us through this a little bit.
That's a broad question. That's tough. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend just doing as much as you can on your own. If there's athletes or parents listening to this, it's not as easy as you said. They're picking things up, putting things down. So I would check your area for a qualified strength coach and search out their advice on that. But yeah, there's 1,000 different ways to do it, and there's no one way for everyone to get it done right. So find someone that can help you with that. It's hard to just give a broad piece of advice over podcasts, but there's lots of good people that can help you out there.
Okay, so let's zoom this down just a little bit here. Okay, so now we're done with the broad stuff. What are you doing with your athletes? How are you best approaching this? How are you best personalizing it for them, for the group, whatever setting you may have them in?
There's a timely question. I like that, actually. This isn't something that we talked about before, but we just got some really cool testing equipment for our company. I think it's similar stuff that NHL teams use. So what we're doing with all of our athletes is we're putting them through a bunch of different strength and power tests using our equipment from Valve. So that's going to just give us some data. Okay, where are we at with this exact athlete right here? What's the differences in their upper body, lower body strength, or how much power can they put in on their jumps? And then just like a big one for hockey players is your adduction versus adduction strength. So your groin versus your glutes, basically. If there's a huge difference between those, that's not really good. in terms of your performance on the ice, and could lead to injuries down the road. So we're going to take a look at that with all our athletes, and then that's going to help dictate our program for them moving forward. But early in off season right now, all the hockey players are ending their season or just about to end. So we're just going to give them a wide range of exercises, just kind of letting the body recover from the intense playoffs runs that most of them just had, and easing them back into strength training for the summer.
All right, I want to go back ever so slightly. So you talked about abduction and adduction. So what would be proper? How should we approach that? You said it basically even, otherwise you're gonna have issues. What are the issues? Why do those come to be? Like how has this become an issue?
Just from the nature of the game, and like that, we're always in that crouched position. So hip flexors are just in a constant state of work. So those and groins, because they get used so much too, they're just more likely to get injured. And I can't remember what the study was, but they took like a bunch of NHL players between 1997 and 99. So it's older, but still relevant. And those that had like an 80% strength difference from their, or 20%, I guess, 20% strength difference from their adductors to their abductors, those were 17 times more likely to get injured in that season. So the smaller we can make the gap, the less likely we are to have that athlete get injured. So I have a lot of hockey players that the groin work is tough for them to do because it's hard, it's difficult. They never do it, and their groins are pretty weak. So I make sure that's a priority in our off-season training and throughout the year as well.
So you're already just throwing out studies left and right. So clearly you're a well-read person. Curious, what are maybe some key tenets that you've driven out of all of this reading, writing, whatever you've been doing to create your expertise in this field? Would really love to tap into that, because obviously the better read you are, usually the better stuff you have. And like my father used to say, readers are leaders.
That's my goal right now. That's what I'm working towards. I'm still new into this industry. My business partner's been doing it. I think he's on his 9th or 10th year in the strength and conditioning realm, and I'm on my 3rd. So compared to him and then compared to other people, I'm still way behind. So I think that's a big reason why I like to read and listen so much, and a big reason why I listen to your podcast, so I can learn more about hockey IQ. So it's just, for me, if I could take a 3-month break at some time, which is impossible, I would just spend that whole time reading, learning, and trying to know as much as I can. But it always seems like you dive down this one rabbit hole and then it just takes you somewhere else. And now you're going and going and going. And there's just so much info out there that you're trying to understand it all and piece it all together. But when you have people in your corner or awesome podcasts that you listen to and you can kind of bounce ideas off each other, that's where everything slowly starts to come together. And then you develop these systems that help program for your athletes better, or a better way to run your sessions. It's helpful. I hope that answered your question.
Well, I'm always about specifics. You've listened to enough podcast episodes to know that you're not getting off easy on any of my questions. So what would be a key tenet? So if someone comes to coach Howatt here, what can they expect? What are the key tenets? Like if you're coming to a Greg Revac run organization, we're doing crossovers on the straightaways if we're doing hard laps around the rink.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about cues and going through reads, and there's going to be a crap ton of passing within movement. So those are the key tenets. And then there's obviously so much that goes under that. But like if someone watches my team, I want them to see they pass well, they read the game well. They're very difficult to track down due to their skating. Like, those are the key items for me. What are those types of things for you and your athletes? Like if someone watches your athlete, you're like, boom, they got this, or this is how I set my athletes up for success.
For the in the gym, off the ice stuff, it's simple. Like every athlete, they're individual and they have their needs of their own. But if we zoom out a little bit, like the main thing that we're looking at is we want to get the athlete faster off the ice because we know that's going to make them faster on the ice as long as their skating's up to par. And I'm sure they have coaches that help them with that. And that's something that we do on the ice as well. So we got to make sure we're making them faster and then make sure we're getting them stronger. So going through their key strengths head to toe, to make it simple, pushing, pulling, carrying, upper body and lower body. That'll probably cover most of it. And then making sure they're in shape. So their aerobic and anaerobic systems are working effectively so they can perform well in the game. If they're not able to recover in between shifts, but they're super fast, then okay, they're good for the first shift, but now at the end of the game, they're ineffective. So to answer more specifically for you, I would just say we're going to be working off the ice. We're doing speed training. There's a lot of sprint drills and sprinting specific work instead of just, okay, go out and run. We're actually improving their sprinting off the ice because the first few steps on the ice are going to be fairly similar to the first few steps on the ice. And then we're getting them stronger and we're getting them in better shape.
All right. So now for the old-time hockey player. So say I take 2-3 weeks off from the game because I've got work commitments. I come back and I'm playing. The next day, why does my lower back hurt so much? Why does it seem like it just wants to seize up? Did I undertrain that as an athlete and now I'm paying the price for it? Is it just a key area that gets utilized a lot, especially when you're doing these fast sprint-like movements where those first 2-3 steps may put a larger load on your lower back than at more cruising speed? What might that be for us older folk that are no longer maybe playing the game, or maybe it's something that's translatable down the system here? But I'm just talking about myself here for a second.
No, you're totally right. Those first few steps, when you're taking off on a sprint on the ice, they're super stressful on your body, and in your low back in particular. So from doing nothing, sitting in your office chair for 2 weeks in a row, and then sprinting as hard as you can on the ice, that's a pretty big change in the two environments that you're in. So the body usually just isn't ready for that. And it's kind of protecting you, saying, well, okay, let's pull back on the gas pedal a little bit here. We don't need to go that hard. So it's just sending you some signals the next day, letting you know, maybe slow down. So for you, then maybe let's try to get in the gym a few more times throughout the week leading up to that game.
This sounds terrible. Come on.
Yeah, I would say most people are undertrained, and then like that's why I touched on the speed element too earlier. Is the people that are going to gym, they're probably doing their like bodybuilding programs that they see online, which are fine, better than nothing, absolutely. But is that really into those high speed movements on the ice? Probably not. It seems like when you get done playing your high school sport, if you're not playing sports anymore, there's no more sprinting. You don't ever sprint in your life again after high school for most people. So working in like, even I have personal training clients too in their like 60s. And I'm still doing some sprint drills with them and getting them running and jumping a little bit more, just so they're still experience that all sides of training and not just the simple strength stuff. And it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. Curious about your thoughts on tumbling. Like, I feel like from my research, well, we're gonna get to tumbling. Let's go back to the lower back now that I have it on my mind. Just like I feel like your movement starts in the lower back and ends in the lower back, and that's why it gets shot so much if you're not developing your back muscles, especially that lower back muscle. Because like as you're activating the kinetic chain, it seems like that's kind of a big piece of it, is that like that pelvic lean that's going to get started. So you kind of like you hit it a little bit, maybe not super hard, but then as your body has to lock up in that nice posture, like you kind of utilize the lower back. So that's what the real key is when we're talking about why you want to train maybe a lower back, even though you're like, how does that operate into how I'm moving?
Yeah, it's definitely an area that people are afraid of and probably undertrained on. As soon as, like, I found with young athletes that I trained and older clients that I've trained, as soon as they feel their back at all, it's like, oh, I can feel my low back. What am I doing wrong? Whereas, like, if we were doing bicep curls and you started to feel the muscles in your bicep, you wouldn't say, oh, I can feel my bicep, the muscles in there are working. What am I doing wrong? It's okay. That's the goal. Obviously not always we want to feel our low back, but sometimes it's okay to feel that muscle working. My guess would just be, because low back injuries are so common. A lot of people struggle with low back pain. It's a super common injury. So it's just been kind of taught throughout society that low back pain is bad and it's going to be there forever. But a lot of people just experience low back pain. It comes and goes, and there's usually not a ton you can do about it. But getting it stronger will definitely help mitigate some of that pain. So like a bunch of core work, super important, but that doesn't mean only doing sit-ups. So I think Boyle's talked about a lot, anti-rotational movements, anti-flexion, anti-extension movements within that spine. If you're training those and aware of your core position throughout those, then that's going to help on the ice, because like you said, when you're on the ice and you haven't played in a while, you are feeling it. And there's so much rotation in hockey, from shooting to passing, and even within each stride that you take. So with how much twisting and turning there is, if it's not strong to handle all those forces, then it's going to get fatigued and you're probably going to feel it the next day.
Solid. I like it. Back to the basics here. Tumbling. I feel like this is a super underrated area of development. Like, if I don't have any young kids, but if I had some young kids, I feel like this is exactly where I'd put all of my time, would be on tumbling, somersaults, all like the gymnastic moves you think about. Because I feel like, and you're the expert, so tell me where I'm wrong here. It just seems like that ability to move and feel comfort while being slightly distorted really translates well. It also helps with the coordination in general. So I think it's an underrated thing we really don't touch on, and especially at older ages. I remember watching Crosby do sprint, like with McDavid. I forget who was training. I want to say O'Brien might be the last name. And he was doing like somersaults, and then they had to like rotate over, like a gator spin, and then they would sprint. And I'm like, genius. Like, why didn't I think about this? Now you're getting rotated on two different planes. We're sprinting. Seems really basic, but something that's super underrated, especially for, I mean, even with older players, like you have to go back to the basics. Like if you don't train it, you'll kind of lose it. But I got to imagine that that's good for all ages.
Yeah, absolutely. With our young developmental athletes, that for our off-ice training, that's going to be a portion in that, just figuring out how to move with your body, whether it's somersaults or different crawls that we're doing, handstands. I think gymnastics is a great way to just develop that overall athleticism and coordination, like you said. Sometimes I find it harder to get buy-in with older athletes that I haven't worked with before, and having them do a somersault into a sprint or something like what you were saying. So having good reasoning behind it for them is crucial. But yeah, it's just being able to know where your body is in space, and then how to direct your force out of different body positions. Like, a game of hockey is so fast and chaotic. It's not everything's going to plan at all times. You're going to get knocked into a weird position and then have to skate out of there, or make a pass while you're off balance, or protecting the puck from weird angles. So yeah, that coordination piece is huge for the game of hockey. Absolutely.
Or like, even I'm thinking about like, okay, you're doing a rotation, you did like a spin, and now you got to get your head up and you've got to isolate the next target, kind of like you're doing with these sprints. Like you do a somersault, and you like just getting your eyes in good spots while your body is tumbling in space. I think might be an underrated element of that, is how, your perception relates to all of this coordination that you're also developing. Like for me, that's what I always thought about, was like, how do I get my eyes better so I can read the key information?
I've never even thought about it like that, but I think that's a great idea. Yeah, because especially in hockey, things are moving so fast and you have to pick up pieces moving around you while you're handling the puck or fending off defender. Now you're trying to see where your opponents, where your teammates are, where the goalie is, where that person that's attacking you, where his hands and foot position are as you're moving at high speed. So being able to track and piece those things out, absolutely, that's important.
Yeah, try walking down the sidewalk or just, go into your living room. Just start looking left and right like you would in a hockey game. You're like scanning and trying to walk in a straight line. Like put down like a piece of tape or a stick or something, and you'll be appalled by how lefty, righty, falling over you do just by simply scanning. Like I would not suggest scanning while doing a deadlift or anything like that, but I think developing some sort of those eye to coordination, I don't know what you would call that, skills, I think would be very interesting, and how I would approach it if I was going back and training my old self.
Yeah, I definitely would have more of that in there for me. There's a lot of things I would change with my old training habits, and there's a big reason why I do what I do today is because I did pretty much nothing right. Well, not that
learning
right.
from failure. It's good. Yeah, I mean, you got to learn from your failures. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went into coaching. So I was like, man, I feel like I could do this so much better. I mean, I had some good youth coaches, but definitely some college coaches. Like, yo, I can do this way better. So I'm going to see if I can. And then I got the bug. And I'm assuming the same thing kind of with you and in your career. Maybe you fill it out a little bit, and then you catch the bug, and you're so deep into research and figuring it out, and you're like, this is actually fascinating.
Yeah, that's, I think, what for my off ice training, I really didn't do anything when I was growing up. I played a bunch of sports, and then from that, I think I just was naturally strong. But then in my last few years of junior hockey, I started training and then started transitioning my schooling more towards that. And then I noticed like, oh, I'm way stronger than I used to be. I'm faster than I used to be. I guess I should have probably listened to my dad when he said, you got to be training in the off season instead of whatever I was doing. So he was right in that way. And then the on ice stuff, I got Belfry's book gifted to me, and then it blew my mind. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much with the on ice training that I had no idea about, or these concepts that I maybe like kind of knew in the back of my head, and he just put it onto paper perfectly. And then so I just searched up on like Apple Podcasts, Daryl Belfry. That's how I found your podcast. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm hooked. And then just went through as many episodes of this as I can. And then found guys like Jack Hahn, and Mitch Brown's episode was incredible, and all these other guests that you had on. And now I'm just in the rabbit hole forever, and I'm never coming out.
Yeah, that's like that lifelong learning. That's why I said, I mean, we're going to be your first podcast, but I can't imagine we'll be your last, because you clearly have the thirst, and it'll be like me. My first episode, a little rough, like, not very good at this. But then by the time you do it a few times, you just key in, and feels natural. I'm probably still terrible. Definitely am, but long way to go, but not as bad as I used to be.
I think you're great.
I always joke it's like the Despicable Me guy, Vector. Got direction and magnitude in the right direction. So it's a fun journey. So we're talking a little bit about the off ice and coordination, things like that. But I think a key element that often gets overlooked is you can go as hard as you want in the gym, but it's going to mean very little unless you start to tune in the nutrition piece. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Like McDavid loves candy. Everyone knows it. But you've got to be directionally sound on what you're eating and what you're putting into your body. So I'm curious if you have any expertise on nutrition and how you advise your clients on that, because it's obviously how you. I remember everyone talking about, you got to lock in your gains.
There was something this past week. I'm sure you saw it. I think it was like all over ESPN, but DK Metcalf in the NFL from Seattle, he went through his like day of nutrition. He says he has one meal, a coffee, and then eats candy for the rest of the day. So if anyone thinks that that's a good idea, please do not listen to that advice from him. He's a genetic freak, and somehow right now he can do that and move and look the way that he does. But I'm sure if he continues that, it won't last forever.
There's no way that his college program didn't have like 4 servings at least, if not maybe 5 servings of protein shakes waiting on his
Yeah.
locker. Like, trust me, there's more to that than that.
Yeah. I'm
I
not
don't know. I haven't owned a TV for 8 years, so maybe I missed it on ESPN. But that's a terrible, terrible diet.
horrible. Wouldn't recommend that to anyone. Where I start with my athletes on the nutrition side, is just I first asked them, okay, what was breakfast today? And then 70%, maybe that's a little high, maybe 60, say didn't eat breakfast today. I'm like, okay, let's start there. Let's get some nutrients in the morning instead of, especially when it's a session that we have together in the gym, or they have a team practice in the morning and they're going there with nothing in their system, the results aren't going to be as good. I always ask them, would you go before a game and not eat anything? And all of them are like, no way, I would never. I'm like, well, let's take our training and our practices just as seriously as we do a game, so we get better results out of there. So making sure we're fed with the appropriate carbs, protein, and fats that we need to fuel us throughout the day will be a big thing. And if we can start off with that in the morning, then that's a good start. I think you're just behind the 8 ball if you skip breakfast too. A lot of young athletes are playing multiple sports, so their day is like a training session in the morning, a practice, and then they go to school, they have gym class, and then they go to hockey practice, and then they're also on the basketball team, so then they go to basketball practice, and they've done so much in a day. You need a lot of calories in the day and a lot of protein to fuel your recovery. If we're skipping breakfast in the morning, then we're way behind now, and it's tough to play catch up when you have
Reminds me of
like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of Michael Phelps, where he did like 10,000 calories a day. And it was like, I eat maybe 3,000 a day. I'm feeling uncomfortable. Like, I can't imagine that. And tell me if this is bad advice, but say you've got a player that's struggling to throw on weight, or an athlete that's struggling to throw on weight. Eating good, nutritious foods, start there, and maybe getting into a little bit of an uncomfortable zone in how much you're eating is probably a good idea and a good place to start. So get your gallon of water and eat nutritious foods until you're slightly uncomfortable, and then see where that goes. Is that bad advice? How am I doing?
No, I think that's fine. And I'm not a nutrition expert either. That's probably an area that I need more work on in myself as well, to educate my athletes and my clients. But I've had athletes ask me, like, is it bad if I eat 3 bananas in a day? And I'm never going to tell them no, because if you're taking out a banana and now it's only 2 bananas, but you added 7 Oreos, I'd rather you be eating those 3 bananas. So like, eat as much nutritious food, like you're saying, as you can. Yeah, get a little uncomfortable, be full. You're playing multiple sports, so let's make sure we're fed appropriately.
Yeah, fine tuning your body as an adult athlete is much different than someone who's still playing competitive or growing in their competitive sports. So, yeah, it's okay to be full.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not eating steaks and drinking bourbon here. It's okay.
I hope none of my young athletes are.
We know better. There's got to be 1 or 2. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Just kidding. But yeah, you've got a great practice, and the things that I've heard have all lined up is doing quality work. Curious, maybe you just walk us through. Okay, say it's leg day in the gym. What does that look like in your eyes? Are you doing a lot of 2-legged squats? Are we doing 1-legged deadlifts? Are we doing, what is it, Belgian split squats? Are we doing squat, then we're going to go sprint? We're doing tumbling. What does that look like for you?
A day in the gym for us, it's going to change like what athlete they are. The answer is always dependent on the athlete, but most athletes that we see will come see us 2-3 times a week in season, maybe just once or twice a week. So it's not usually like a focus on just a leg day, unless it's an older athlete, then we might split up upper body, lower body if they're training with us 4 or 5 times a week. But let's just say 3 times a week for the average athlete. And then within those days, we're kind of splitting it up. I definitely want some double leg work in there, some single leg work, and then some upper body pushing and pulling, and then the core work that we talked about earlier. That's the base of our strength work. So looks pretty simple, sounds pretty simple. And then in the gym, we're going to start the day off with a warm up, and then we'll head into our speed velocity block, which will be jumps, sprint drills, med ball throws, and then we go into that strength piece that I just mentioned. So that's like a typical day for what an athlete.
So, okay, you're doing sprint work, and then you're doing heavy lifting work after the fact. Is that a purposeful thing? Would there be benefits to switching that? Curious to understand more about that.
We like to do our like sprint velocity work before our strength work, just because the intensity with that is going to be higher, and now you have more energy to put into that, and then bang for your buck. I think that sprint velocity block is going to be more beneficial than the strength work. You can still squat and bench when you're a little bit tired and a little bit fatigued, but the sprinting and jumping, I'd rather you have a lot more energy so we can get more out of those sprints and jumps.
Got it. And I'm curious. So hockey is a lot of fast twitch. So, some people are more prone to that than others. I'm curious, are there good quality ways of creating fast twitch muscles and developing the fast twitch response in your body that hockey requires? Is there a good way to go about that? I've always been deadly curious about what's the best way to optimize your body after, you've got your general base of genetics, but then how can we transition that to the best of our abilities?
There's a few different things that we do with our older athletes, like some over speed work for our sprint draining. So like just a slight decline, sprints on a hill, not like imagine the hills that people sprint up in all the videos that you see. We're not going to be sprinting down that, just like a ever so slight decline, 5 to 10 degrees. That's going to create some good overspeed. So just getting your body a little bit more uncomfortable than what you're used to, helping your legs move faster. And then you can do the same thing in jumping and throwing as well. Light instruments, so like a 4 to 8 pound med ball for our med ball throws. That's going to help target that area as well. And then for our jumping, we can work on both ends of the spectrum. We can give a little resistance so we can jump into a band, or like have a band around you and be jumping, having that resistance. And then we can aid our jumps with a band, so it helps to kind of propel us further. And again, like those downhill sprints, helping you move faster and more explosively.
Good stuff here. One other area I've always been curious about, and I'm a big fan of stair training. So like just, running stadium stairs. I feel like that's a pretty stepped up way of going about it. So I'm curious your thoughts on potentially using stairs. Everyone's got it, especially if you're in a city like Pittsburgh. A lot of stairs out there. Maybe you're hanging out in San Francisco. A lot of stairs, not much flat ground. So, is that beneficial to hockey players? Or the any rationale why old time coaches have had, hey, go run the stairs?
Absolutely. If you would have asked me like a year ago or 2 years ago, probably, I would have just gave you a generic answer that were like, yeah, sure, it'll help build your speed and strength and conditioning, depending on how you're programming it. But I'm not sure if you've had Joel Jameson on your podcast. He's with the Oilers now.
Yeah, Joel Jackson. I'm a big fan of his. He'll be on.
Sorry.
Before you know it, you may find an episode of the Hockey IQ podcast with Joel.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah,
might be lined up with the newsletter release on the exact same topic.
Yes. So like he wrote an article on that, and it's incredible, like the amount of detail that he went into it. with the contact times running on stairs, and then looking at the contact times for the start of your sprint on the ice, and how similar they are depending on like how many stairs that you're skipping. So I would just direct everyone to that article because it sums it up perfectly, and I won't do it justice if I explain that. Maybe we can link that in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Don't plug him yet. Wait till he comes on.
Yeah, I get him full glory. So we'll preview it here, we'll say.
Yeah, there we go. A little preview for him.
Yeah, excellent. Well, had you on for a good little bit now. I just want to leave the air open. Where do you want to take the conversation? What do you want to talk about? I'm the idiot in the room. I know it. So I want to learn from you.
Oh man, that's tough.
I mean, you've listened to a few episodes. You already knew this wasn't going to be an easy one.
Yeah.
When's the last time I let anyone off?
No, you're right. One thing I'm super interested in right now, I think we like previously had a conversation just about the testing that we've done before. So in one of our summer camps, we tested sprints on the ice every week. And the athletes that were the most consistent throughout the summer, they got faster on the ice and they had more lower body power on the jumps that we measured. So it was exciting to see. And that's why we do a lot of testing too, to make sure we're actually improving. It's a good way to create that buy-in with the athletes and with the parents too, so they're the ones paying for it. So we can show them, hey, we're improving in this area. So lately I've been thinking about how are we, because that's just one area of the game. So how are we doing that in terms of like hockey IQ and awareness and knowledge of the game? I need something to show parents and show athletes. It's like, okay, this is how we're getting better. And I mean, it's probably, there's a way that you can do it in the NHL because they track absolutely everything. So I can pull zone entries and see how more effective you are on your zone entries, but I can't do that in the middle of a summer camp. So that's just like what's frustrating me right now, and what I want to learn more about, or if there's a way we can develop it. So I think I successfully avoided your question there, but I want
to. Yeah, it was perfect. But here, let me be the idiot real quick. So like for me, didn't even click in my mind during my playing career, like the importance of deceleration and being able to like catch your body weight. Like, I was one of those kids is like doing a squat. Okay, we'll just go down as fast as we can and then get to the push part because that's what matters. And now I'm older. I'm like, wow, I am an idiot. That's why I've got like chicken legs because I totally didn't develop the whole like being able to catch my own body weight for that next movement. Like could have had way better agility, et cetera, et cetera. So like there's an area for me. Total idiot. Wish I would have learned it earlier. Glad I know it now. Not rushing through the lift.
Yeah, there's the number one thing we're going to focus on when we have a new athlete is making sure it looks like a controlled movement. If it doesn't look good, then something's probably not right. So controlling that eccentric portion of the lift that's crucial when we.
Oh, wait, you can't use fancy words on this podcast.
Sorry,
break that down. We Anthony Donskop tried to do that on us, and we had to be like, we don't know these big fancy words.
So just when the muscles lengthening, so like going down into a squat, lengthening, and then on their way up, it's contracting, or the concentric portion of the lift.
So eccentric is on the way down. Concentric is on the way up.
It would just depend on the lift, but generally, yes. Like in a bench press, because but let's do bicep curl. It's summer's coming up soon. Everyone wants bigger biceps anyways. So when you're letting the weight down and your muscles are lengthening and getting longer, that's the eccentric portion of our lift. And then on the way up is the concentric portion, when the muscles are, I guess you can't see on a video or on an audio podcast, but coming together and shortening.
Got it. All right. I can follow. Just want to make sure I'm following you. All right. Back to the regular scheduled program here.
No, yeah, that's like you're saying, like you wish you knew that earlier on. So just having more control for our athletes during those lift. When we were talking earlier about the tumbling and gymnastics movements, I think one of my main things when I'm working with someone is the long-term goal would for me to just tell them to do something, whether it's a jump or a roll, and then they're just able to do it and figure it out on their own. There's so many athletes that I've worked with brand new coming in. And if we're doing a somersault and they just like have zero ability at all to do a somersault, that's not ideal. We want to develop the whole athlete. Obviously, we're hockey players first, but we should be able to do a somersault and control our body. We should be able to jump and land on one leg and be able to stick it without bouncing around. So developing the whole athlete is going to be a big part of our training.
Yeah, there's more to it than specializing earlier. It's been shown and time again, and I don't know why we don't listen to the studies, that hockey is a late specialization sport. So I don't know what that means to everyone else, but for me, that's like 14 and later. Maybe you can start specializing. Anything earlier than that is just a little asinine or silly. So we should definitely pull back, do some tumbling, throw the kid into gymnastics or something, baseball, whatever they enjoy. I like soccer because I think it's very similar patterns and how you need to think about it, like a lot more area passes in soccer, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, make sure we're training as an athlete first, hockey player second.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle right now that at least some places here in Canada are in, where it's hockey 12 months of the year. I'm sure you guys experience that well. And I think educating the parents will be huge on that, because if you ask a young hockey player, obviously they're going to want to train 7 days a week for 365 days a year. They'll play hockey all day. They'll get on the ice. But if we can get them off the ice a little bit more, and like you said, get them into other sports like soccer, where tactical elements from sport to sport can transfer, that's going to be huge. But educating the parents on why it's important is probably the key to starting that.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for coming on here. I'll give you 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you need to wind us down here. But thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Like I said, it's only on the up and up from here. I've seen your stuff. It's too good.
No, I really, really appreciate it, Greg. It was great coming on the podcast with the guests that you had on here before and that you're going to have in the future. I'm honored to be one of those guests. I guess a little plug, I would just say follow Chestermere Speed School and Final 20 Hockey Development on Instagram. Those are two companies that
Say
work
that slower for us, please.
so
we can actually go and look it up.
Yes. It's Chestermere Speed School, just a small town outside Calgary where we started. And then Final 20 Hockey Development. And both those are on Instagram.
And that's a 20, so Final 20, not Final 20 spelled out.
You got it.
Perfect. Well, appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Greg.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.